I don't know the last time that I was embarrassed, but I think the Big 12 should know that it embarrassed itself this weekend. Or I guess last weekend. Because the Big 12 has decided that it's going to do away with its preseason media poll. And I think that's embarrassing because the Big 12 got embarrassed last year when the 16th placed team in their conference, Arizona State, went on to win the conference championship and represent that league in the college football playoff. They looked stupid. They looked weak. They looked bad on kind of all fronts because the team that the consensus was that they were going to finish as the worst team in the conference won the conference. And so the Big 12 said, we can't have that happen again. We can't look that weak, that poor on the big stage going forward. And so the way to do that is eliminate that storyline. And I think that's a bad idea because, and I'll say this until I'm blue in the face, sports inherently is about storylines. Arizona State was a really great story in 2024. Cam Scatterbo is a great story. The Sun Devils winning the conference championship in spite of being picked 16th in their league is a great story. A team that was supposed to finish last in the Big 12 took a team that finished a few plays away from winning this SEC to the brink of elimination in the college football playoff. And the Big 12 has decided, no, that's bad. And I couldn't disagree more. On some levels, do I understand it? Yes. Because, and I know the popular argument is, there shouldn't be polls until week 6. Yeah, I think everybody agrees with that. But there's no way to police that. So somebody's going to make a poll, and then when somebody gets the attention for making that poll, everybody else is going to go, well, hell, I want some attention, and they make a poll. So you might as well accept the fact that there are going to be preseason polls. And the people who will argue in the comments like, well, it's a preseason poll, it don't mean nothing. Everybody knows that it doesn't mean nothing. Yeah. I'm driven crazy by those people that there shouldn't be polls. Yeah, I agree. There shouldn't be like fentanyl either, but here we are. Things happen and you got to figure it out. But if you start with hey, this team was supposed to finish 16th in its own conference, it then becomes increasingly more difficult for Arizona State to climb up the polls or whatever school is supposed to finish 16th that might completely overexceed expectations. If you are going to just be significantly better than other people predicted you to be, that is a good thing for that program, but it's also makes things a little bit more challenging because, yes, we absolutely have preconceived notions going into the 2025 college football season. And even if there was no poll, even if there was no preseason poll, even if there was no conference media polls or whatever, you would still know that Ohio State and Alabama and Georgia and Texas would all be, Penn State would all be relatively in the top 5 or 10 without there being a poll listed because you know these schools were good last year and they have a lot of returning players or they're traditionally good. So you can pound the eliminate the polls table all you'd like, but that it doesn't matter at the end of the day. But I think it is important to have some semblance of this is what we expect the conference to look like going into the season. And does that hurt the feelings of teams 13, 14, 15, and 16? Yeah, it does. Does that make teams 13, 14, 15, and 16 look like they don't matter? Should it send a message to their fan base that, hey, the season's probably not going to go very well. Don't get excited. Don't buy tickets. Don't show up. Don't watch. You could probably argue that, yeah. But you know what it does? It tells great stories. Because if you're picked to finish 13th in the Big 12 and you go on to play in the championship game, it's a good story. And it also, as much as I hate unneeded motivation. I hate a few years ago when Georgia wins national championship, they're wire-to-wire number one team in the country from preseason all the way to the championship game. And after the game, players like, nobody believed in us. Nobody thought we could do this. Baker Mayfield was the number one pick in the NFL draft. Like, nobody's ever believed in me my entire life. You won the Heisman Trophy and the number one overall pick in the NFL draft. What the hell are you talking about? Nobody ever believed in us. Drives me nuts. You're picked 16th in the conference media poll to start the season and you win the conference championship game. You can probably say, nobody believed in us. Nobody ever thought we'd be here. So I think the motivating factor of, hey, people think we're going to suck. Let's go show them wrong. You now completely lose that too. But the idea, and I think this might be the thing that I think is the most embarrassing part. The idea is that should you sit down and you rank the preseason poll 1 through 16 in the Big 12, or pick whatever conference you'd like. And if the number one team loses to what would have been the 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th best team in the conference, the fan base doesn't understand that that's a really bad loss. Because that's sort of the argument being made here is the Big 12 is trying to control the narrative by saying, well, you can't say that, oh, you start the conference season and the number one team loses number 16. Well, you can't say they were the number 16 team in the conference preseason poll because we didn't have a poll. Brother, we know what teams are good and not good. You know who is just ass and who has completely underperformed or overperformed, etc., regardless of whether or not it was chiseled into stone for you before the season started. And it's insulting, I think, to college football fans and to fans of the Big 12 in particular in this instance to try to sweep that under the rug, so to speak, to try to make it clear, like, hey, if we don't say that Cincinnati or Arizona are the 16th best team in the Big 12, nobody will ever know that they're the 16th best team in the Big 12. We'll figure it out by watching football. You'll see it on the screen that, oh, this team's not very good. And then like halfway through November, you'll realize that somebody is 2-8. And you'll know that they're the 16th best team in the Big 12. I slightly understand the argument of like, don't pin that on somebody before the season starts. Let the games decide who are teams 1 through 16. On the surface, I understand that. But if we're going to live in a college football world where wins and losses are all that matters, which we undeniably do, I think it's okay to have a preconceived notion going into a game of what the expected result is/should be. And I don't think it's unreasonable to have an expectation of who's going to finish where, because I don't think anybody sees these preseason polls and starts biting their fingernails going, oh, God, no. I thought we were going to be the best team in the conference, and instead they've got us listed 14th. I don't think that happens. I think every fan base in America today has an idea of where they'll be ranked in the preseason poll, whether it be in their conference or in the AP Top 25, the ESPN poll, Football Power Index, whatever the case may be. College football fans and I can't believe I'm saying this, aren't always completely unreasonable. There isn't a contingent of fans at Arkansas going, I can't wait until the AP Top 25 poll comes out because we're going to be number one. They're not going to be number one, and they know that they're not going to be number one. But they also don't need to sit in the dark and go, I wonder where we would be placed in the SEC media poll. I understand the counterpoint that all this does is damage teams in the Big 12 trying to make a college football playoff. But I think that's a dumb way to operate. It's a dumb way to think. It's a dumb thing to prioritize when, at the end of the day, if all that matters is what happens between those white lines is true. And I think it's relatively fair to say, yeah, that is true. Whatever happens on the field is what matters most. Arizona State didn't almost get left out of the college football playoff, or anybody else really for that matter. SMU didn't almost get left out of the college football playoff from where they were ranked in the preseason poll. I'm here to tell you that outside of somebody either being ranked number one, predicted to win their conference and falling flat on their face, kind of a la Florida State last year, or the exact opposite, which we saw Arizona State go from 16th in the preseason poll to winning it, I think you'd be hard-pressed to ask a college football fan, like a die-hard fan, where did your team fall in the preseason media poll when it comes time to select a college football playoff? I think if you were to ask the college football playoff selection committee, hey, where did Alabama, SMU, and Clemson fall in their preseason conference poll? I don't think they'd be able to tell you. It's such a non-starter in the conversation that to bring the attention on yourself, to do away with it, is a bigger deal than just not doing it or doing it and people being wrong. Proving people wrong is a great story. And the Big 12 is now punting on that story. And I think that's a bad decision. I don't think not doing a preseason media poll will lead to higher rankings in the preseason, which ultimately leads to better rankings down the line, or better placement in the college football playoff. I don't think those things are connected. I don't think it leads to higher TV ratings because people know that Arizona and Cincinnati might not be very good in 2025. I don't think that does anything other than make people look at you and go, the hell are you guys doing? And when the biggest takeaway somebody can take from looking at what you're doing and go, what the hell are you guys doing? Generally, I think it's fair to say you haven't made the right decision. Want to know your thoughts? Argue with me in the comments. Do you think there should be preseason polls? I know that there's a vast majority of people that say no. There's nothing you can do to stop it. But I want to know your thoughts. Should there be conference preseason media polls? Where do you think your team is going to be ranked in those preseason media polls? Drop them in the comments below. That'll do it for today's episode of the Daily Huddle. I appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're getting all the great college football content we're pumping out. If you're listening on the podcast feed, drop a 5-star review. It goes a long way in helping out the channel. I'll see you tomorrow for another episode of the Daily Huddle.